Hello Christian, in this video we're going to take a look at how to animate rigid bodies in Blender. So first open Blender, we have a camera, a cube and a light. We need to add a rigid body to this cube. So select this cube, go to physics properties, then click rigid body. This will add an active rigid body to this cube. Now if I press spacebar in the keyboard to play, as you can see the cube will start falling. Go to first frame, G to move, Z to move the cube up a little. We need to add a plane to make sure there is a ground. Shift plus A, mesh plane. Just to scale the plane to something like this, then Control plus A, apply the scale. Make sure to apply the scale before applying a rigid body. Then go here, click rigid body, change this active to passive. We need the plane to stay exactly where it is. Now if I press play, as you can see the cube will start interacting with the plane. Now if we select this cube, as you can see there is a dynamic option and an animated option. If we select the plane, as you can see there is only an animated option. That's because only active rigid bodies have the dynamic option. As you can see by default this dynamic option is enabled. If I press play, the cube will start falling. If I disable this dynamic option, then press play, as you can see the cube will start acting as a passive rigid body. Now if I go to here, bring this up a little, go to first frame, tick this dynamic option, then place the mouse cursor here, press I in the keyboard to add an active keyframe, then go to 20th frame, disable this dynamic option, then press I to add another keyframe, then go to 40th frame, then enable this dynamic option again, then press I to add another keyframe, then press play. As you can see, it's like this. From 1 to 19, it will act as an active rigid body since we enabled the dynamic option. And from 20 to 39, it will act as a passive rigid body since the dynamic option is disabled. Then from 40 to the rest of the frame, it will act as an active rigid body since the dynamic option is ticked. That way you can make your active rigid body act also as a passive rigid body in times. Now we're going to take a look at the animated option. So select this cube, I'm going to delete it. Add another cube, Shift plus A, mesh cube, G to move, Z to move 1.02. Now if you go front view using numbered 1, as you can see there is a tiny bit of space between the two. Now select the cube, G to move, X to move, I'm going to move it to here, Shift D to duplicate, X to move along X axis and move it to here. Select this cube, add an active rigid body, select this one also, add an active rigid body. Now we're going to animate this cube from here to hit this cube. Go to first frame, select this cube, press I in the keyboard, location. This will add a location keyframe to this cube. Then go to 30th frame, G to move, X to move it to here. Now if I left click, as you can see this cube will go back to its original position. That's because we need to tick this animated option if you want to animate a rigid body. So if I enable this animated option, as you can see this cube will move from here to here since we moved it here. Then press I in the keyboard, location. Now if you go to first frame and press play, as you can see this cube will move from here to here to hit this one like this. Now if I select this cube, it has a mass of 1 kilogram and this cube has also a mass of 1 kilogram. If I select this cube and increase this mass to 100 kilogram, then go to first frame and press play. As you can see, it's the same as before. That's because from 1 to 13th frame, this cube is animated, which means it doesn't have any effect on the physics properties since the animated option is taking over. We don't want that. We need this cube to have the animated option just before hitting this cube and the physics option to take over after hitting this one. So in order to do that, go to first frame, select this cube, select all of these animation keyframes, then delete all of it. Then go to first frame, press play to make sure there is another bit of data here. Then go to first frame again, go to front view using numbered 1, make sure this animated option is ticked, press I in the keyboard, location. This will add a location keyframe. Go to 13th frame, you can type it here, 30, G to move, X to move and move it to here. Make sure it's not hitting this one. Then press I in the keyboard, location. This will add a location keyframe to from here to here. Now go to first frame again. Select this cube, go to here, make sure the animated option is ticked, place the mouse cursor here, press I in the keyboard to add a keyframe with animation enabled. Go to 29th frame, and go here, place the mouse cursor over this animated option, press I to add another keyframe, then go to 30th frame and disable this animated option, then press I in the keyboard to add another keyframe. That way, from 1th frame to 29th frame, animated option will take over, and from 13th frame, physics option will take over. Now if I press play by going to first frame, as you can see, it's like this. This is because this has a mass of 100 kilogram. I'm going to change it to 1, and this has a mass of 1 kilogram. Go to first frame, press play again. As you can see, it's like this. It's not real life friendly like we expected. That's because if I select this and bring this up a little, change this to graph editor, as you can see, the velocity of this cube is increasing gradually from here to here, then decreasing like this. We don't want that. We need this to be a constant. So in order to do that, go to timeline again. Select all of this keyframe using A key, then press T in the keyboard, then select the linear option. Now if we change this to graph editor, as you can see, it's constant like this. Change this back to timeline. Now if I press play, as you can see, it's like this. This way you can make your simulation more real life friendly. Now if I select this cube, I'm going to change this to a 10 kilogram. That way this is more heavier than this one. This has a mass of 1 kilogram. Go to first frame, press play. As you can see, it's like this. Now if I select this, change this mass to 20 kilogram. Go to first frame again, press play. As you can see, it's more real world friendly right now. Now we're going to use all of this knowledge and make a simple scene like this. So select these cubes, both of them, press delete to delete both of them. Go to first frame, bring this down a tiny bit. Now we need to add a ramp. So shift plus A, mesh line. S to scale, X to scale among X axis, and scale it to something like this. I'm gonna change this to 18. If I press N in the keyboard, you can see the exact dimension of my plane like this. Then I'm going to change this Y to 6. As an X dimension of 36 and Y dimension of 6 meter. Press N to hide that window. Now we need to apply the scale, Control plus A, scale. This will apply the scale. Make sure you apply a scale before applying a rigid body. Go to front view using number 1. Press N to bring back this window. I'm going to rotate this in the Y axis. Select this Y, minus 20. That way we'll rotate it like this. I need an exact amount so that I can rotate also the cube. G to move. Make sure there is space between these two. Now we need a cube. Shift plus A, mesh cube. Go to front view again using numbered 1. As you can see, we can't see the plane. Go to wireframe. Select the cube. Also rotate in the Y axis. Minus 20. G to move. G, Z, Z to move it in the local Z axis. G, X, X to move it in the local X axis. As you can see, this plane has no thickness. We don't want that. Select this. Go to edit mode using tab. Select all using A key. E to extrude. Then go to solid mode. We need to make sure the face orientation is correct. So in order to do that, press N to hide that window. Go to object mode using tab. Go to this option, overlays. Enable the face orientation. As you can see, it's not correct right now. Select this. Go to edit mode using tab. Select all using A key. Then shift plus N in the keyboard. This will recalculate the normals like this. Go to object mode again. Turn off face orientation. Go to front view. Select both of these. G to move. Z to move. Now it's looking like this. Now we need a UV sphere here. So shift plus A, mesh, UV sphere. Scale this down a little. S to scale. Go here. I'm going to change this. Change all of this to 0.8. That's good. Then Control plus A, apply the scale. Go to front view. G to move and move it to here. Press N in the keyboard. Also rotate it in the Y axis. Minus 20 degree. And to hide that window. G, Z, Z to move it in the local Z axis. Select this, right click, shade smooth. Now we got something like this. Now select this one, add rigid body, active rigid body. Select this, add an active rigid body also. Select this, add a passive rigid body. Now if I press play, as you can see, it's like this. Go to front view using numbered 1. We need this cube to hit this UV sphere. So in order to do that, go to first frame, select the cube, make sure the animated option is ticked. That way you can animate this rigid body. Make sure you are in the first frame. Place the mouse cursor here, press I in the keyboard, location, rotation and scale. Then go to 30th frame, G to move, X to move, press X again to move it in the local X axis and move it here. Then press I in the keyboard, location, rotation and scale. Then go to first frame, press play. As you can see, our cube will hit the UV sphere like this. Now we need this cube to come from here to here. After hitting the UV sphere, select the cube, select this keyframe, first keyframe, shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to place this in the 100th frame, G to move, 100th frame. Now go back to first frame, press play. As you can see, this cube will go back to its original position after hitting the UV sphere. You can also change the velocity with which this cube hits this UV sphere by moving this keyframe. So if I select this keyframe and G to move and move it to a 40th frame, then go back to first frame, press play. As you can see, it will hit like this. Now if I select this and G to move and move it to 20th frame, then go back to first frame, press play. As you can see, it's like this. If I select this cube, select this, G to move it to 10th frame, then go back to first frame, press play. As you can see, the velocity is like this. I'm going to change this back to 13th, G to move and move it to 13th frame. Go back to first frame, press play. We can change the velocity according to our preferences. Later we add a stack of cubes. Go back to first frame. Gonna add a plane. Shift plus A mesh. I'm gonna add a cube though. Then go to top view. S to scale to something like this. Front view using numbered 1. S to scale. Z to scale. G to move. Z to move. Make sure there is space between the lower plane and this one. Select this, go to edit mode using tab, go to face select mode, select the top face, go to front view, G to move, Z to move. This way we have a nice platform like this. Then go to object mode using tab, Control plus A, scale, apply the scale, select this cube, right click, set origin to geometry. That way the origin of this cube will be inside this one. Select this. Add a rigid body, change this back to passive. Go to first frame, press play. Now we need a stack of cubes, so select this, go to edit mode using tab, select the top face, shift plus S in the keyboard, then cursor to selected. This will place a 3D cursor at the top like this. Go to object mode again. Shift plus A, mesh cube, S to scale, 0.4, enter, press N in the keyboard. As you can see, it got a 0.8 meter. Then Control plus A, apply the scale. I think it's a little big. Going to change this to 0.5. 0.5 looks good. Then Control plus A, apply the scale. Now we need to add a stack of cubes. Press N to hide this window. Go to Modify Properties, Add Modifier, Generate, Array Modifier. Change this to 1.02. Change this count to 6. Select this, Shift D to duplicate, then Shift D again to duplicate again. We have 3 array modifiers. First one in the x-axis. Second one, I'm going to change this to 8 and change this to 0 and the y to 1.02. Change this to 0 and the z to 1.02, and I'm going to change this count to 12. As you can see, we have 3 array modifiers like this. As you can see, I think it's a little small, so I'm going to scale this one. S to scale, press N in the keyboard, change this to 1.4. Now that's looking good. Then Control plus A, apply the scale. Then we need to apply the array modifiers. Press N to hide this window. As you can see, these cubes are sharp right now. We need a bevel modifier. Select this. Go to Modify Properties, Add Modifier, Generate Bevel Modifier. Then change this to 0.02. That way there's only a tiny bit of bevel. Do not apply the bevel modifier though. Now we need to make all of this into simple cubes. So go to edit mode using tab, select all using a key, press P in the keyboard, select by loose parts, then go to object mode. Now we need to bring the origin of every single one of these cubes at the center of each of them. Right click, set origin to geometry. This will bring back the origin of every one of them to like this. Now we need to add a rigid body. Go to physics properties, rigid body, active rigid body. Then change this to 0.1 since there are small cubes. Then go to object, rigid body, copy from active. That way the active object will have the same rigid bodies like this. As you can see, we have a stack of cubes with a rigid body applied with a 0.1 kilogram mass. Now go to wireframe mode, select the stack of cubes alone, control select to deselect that one, go to front view using numbered one. We need to move this into Z axis, G to move, Z to move. Make sure there is a tiny bit of space between all of that. Go to top using numbered 7. We need to bring this in the middle, G to move, Y to move along Y axis. Then G to move, X to move, and move it to here. Then go back to first frame, go to solid mode, then press play. As you can see, it's like this. That's because this UV sphere has only a mass of 1 kilogram. I'm going to change this to 5 kilogram. Then go to first frame, press play. As you can see, we got a simple simulation like this. Now if I select this cube and change this velocity a little by moving this keyframe G to move, I'm going to place it to 20. Then play again. Then if I change this to G to move 25, let's play again. As you can see, we got something like this. I'm going to place this back to 30 though. This way you can control the velocity of the UV sphere by controlling this keyframe. Now we're going to add a simple material to this. So select this, go to material preview mode. Go to material preview mode. As you can see, we got something like this. To first frame, press play. We get a nice looking something like this. Go to rendered mode. We need a light. you get a simple cube simulation as you can see. If you want, you can render the scene, but I'm not going to do that though. We'll render complex simulations in the future videos. If you like this video so far, please give a like to this video in the bottom. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye for now.